They're only good when they're doing this job for $5 to $10 a day, sometimes upwards of $27 a day. On the exact opposite of the spectrum are private fire brigades, where people get upwards of $7,000 a day protecting properties such as former LA mayoral candidate Rick Caruso's property in the Pacific Palisades.
For a better future, tonight, an inside look at the partnership between the state and CAL FIRE as they prepare for the brunt of fire season.
It's a really good inside look at something you'll see only on CBS 13. Andrew Hobner takes us to a correctional camp in Nevada County.
Washington Ridge Camp doesn't feel like a correctional facility.
This place, it's a chance to figure it out, you know, get away from the hustle and bustle.
To the men clad in orange jumpsuits, it is and it isn't.
It pretty much takes away the CDCR part of this experience. When we go out to fires, the public is very supportive, very happy to see us. The captains treat us as men.
Jamil Thomas is serving time for a weapons charge and says the prison environment is very different than what we see at camp.
It's very racially segregated. So say this person over here does something I have nothing to do with. That involves me now. This place here is completely, you are held accountable.
In the mornings, he goes outside, takes.
It's so crazy that these dudes are so desperate for like a crumb of being treated like human beings, which they are, that they're like, this is great. I get paid sometimes $26 a day. Okay. And I get treated like a human, you know, people are appreciative. People offer dignity to me.
In the mountain air and reads books on spirituality.
And we got a saying, I mean, you know, if you're not happy here, you're just not happy.
Firefighters here aren't paid much at all by normal standards, but even from within, there is a push for them to make a more livable wage.
We have no issues in camp treating these guys with the respect of a firefighter. That's what they are.
Inside the camp,
Will this program give them a pathway to employment when released? No.
Inmates and groups have responsibility for different aspects of the firefighting team.
They treat us just like, you know, basically a firefighter. We are firefighters.
And for men like Thomas who are hoping to better themselves after prison, that's how they want it.
This is something I'm interested in doing, and it gave me a chance to really figure out and see, hey, being a good person and doing good things, there's rewards and benefits to that.
Fred Money with CDCR says the program reintroduces a degree of humanity back within his correctional officers.
Is it recidivism at all? No, these programs are actually really good, but the problem is it's being done in a way that is maxing out. Like it's being done in a way where it's basically, I mean, it's right? All matter of training that you get that is adequately compensated can be incredibly helpful in reintegration. Okay? Incredibly helpful in reintegration. The issue, on the other hand, is that these guys don't actually get the jobs. It is unimaginably rare for an inmate to be able to get gainful employment in a fire department, especially in Los Angeles County, after they get out. They're only good when they're doing this job for $5 to $10 a day, sometimes upwards of $27 a day. On the exact opposite of the spectrum are private fire brigades, where people get upwards of $7,000 a day protecting properties such as former LA mayoral candidate Rick Caruso's property in the Pacific Palisades. We will be talking to some of these inmate firefighters later today. Can you say more about why they don't get employment after getting out? Because there is desperate need for extra hands in combating wildfires, but there's not enough money. They don't want to hire them. LA Fire Department also has LA Fire Department, I think, has a rule where you can't be a felon if you want to ever get hired. The thing is, the LA Fire Department is also one of the most sought after jobs, and the same for New York Fire Department as well. These are jobs with a decent pension plan. These are decently paid jobs in general, and it's a very competitive job to get. It's a super, super competitive market. So they're only good to fight these fires if they can be used as slave labor to basically displace the remaining Los Angeles Fire Department's firefighting numbers. They do it for much cheaper, you know. Also, before you look at the situation and assume that these are like rapists or whatever, no violent offenders are allowed to even take part in this training program. Okay, like you can't. As far as I understand, I might be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to take part in the training program at all. Yeah, average Los Angeles Fire Department firefighter yearly pay in the United States is approximately $94,390, which is 98% above the national average. Yeah. California inmate firefighters are legally barred from serving as full-time firefighters after prison. Like, this is literally a law, an existing California licensing law that bans many ex-offenders from working as full-time firefighters, even if they were trained to fight fires while in prison, was upheld last week by a federal judge. Since World War II, California has relied on prisoners to fight the state's immensely destructive wildfires. But once released from prison, the state makes it almost impossible for former prisoners to earn a living fighting fires full-time. Nearly all local fire departments require certification as an emergency medical technician, yet under California law, EMT certification is off limits to anyone who has ever been convicted of 2 or more felonies, has been released from prison for any felony in the past decade, or has been convicted of any 2 or more drug misdemeanors in the past 5 years. Adding to the absurdity, people with multiple felonies can still serve as volunteer or seasonal firefighters, though the latter is only a part-time and provides far less job security and fewer benefits than working year-round in a municipal fire department. This basically openly betrays the good reason for why these training programs exist. These training programs are good for reintegration, right? It is supposed to lower recidivism, the likelihood to reoffend, because if you have a gainful employment opportunity in the aftermath of your prison sentence, you are significantly less likely to fuck that up, okay? It is one of the most, it is one of the best possible ways of engaging in the rehabilitative process. The issue, however, is that that's very obviously not the point. They want them as slave labor that can be easily expended. Crazy thing that firefighter jobs is competitive. Meanwhile, the LAPD and NYPD, all you need is to graduate from high school in the 6 months class to people. Yeah, of course. This is an infinitely more difficult job. Yes, fighting fires is an infinitely more dangerous and infinitely more difficult job than being a cop. I think we all agree with that, right? I hope that people understand that. That's a crazy thing. Anyway, although the court recognized that California's ban has been subject to public critique and that plaintiffs have alleged a valid injury, it nevertheless sided with the state and upheld the ban. Judge John Mendez adopted the government's position that blocking ex-offenders from becoming EMT certified advances the government's legitimate interest in ensuring public safety, as EMTs often deal with vulnerable persons in responding to emergencies. This article is from 2021. It's not relevant. What? Many incarcerated firefighters do go on to gain employment at the California Department of Forestry and Fire, Cal Fire. Yeah, Cal Fire in 2022 hired an estimated 229 incarcerated firefighters. But we're talking about municipal jobs. I don't think they can get municipal jobs still. CAL FIRE partnered with Anti-Recidivism Coalition to develop an 18-month training and certification program. In 2022, CAL FIRE estimated that 229 incarcerated firefighters had gone through the training program and 136 received jobs in the 5 years prior. Yeah, they can be seasonal. They can also be seasonal hires. This article also says that they can be seasonal hires. They simply cannot. They cannot work for the municipal fire department that is unionized, full-time job with benefits. That was what I was talking about. And even then, those numbers are low to begin with. Nay, it's easier to be a firefighter. You know, all the fires are bad compared to a cop where you have to determine between a good black person and a bad one. They treat them the exact same, but it's still hard to do so. Why are you talking shit when you need to look up the law? Wait, what? No one is talking shit. I think that chatter is providing extra information, and I think that that's valuable. If he had brought forth information that I was oblivious to, I mean, if I didn't know, if something changed that I didn't know about, like hiring municipal firefighters that are convicts, then yeah, I would tell that chatter thank you. Marukusu-chan. Anyway, but thank you for the additional clarification. All right, let's talk about the city budgets real quick as well before we continue with the let's talk about the city budgets, because obviously, you know, we have budgetary concerns. Here is LA Comptroller Kenneth Mejia. Seeing city officials in the press ignore the severe impacts of these budget cuts, especially the ones covering for their poor budget decisions to cut a majority of the fire department, the majority of the department's budgets, even after Chief Crowley told them about the impacts these cuts had, is disgraceful. They keep saying, but LAFD got a raise in November. If these fires happen in August to October, would these same city officials then admit that the LAFD's budget got cut in July, where 61 civilian support positions were eliminated and sworn payroll and expenses were reduced? By the way, as far as the civilian positions goes, yes, it's not directly a person that is holding the hose, but it's actually mechanics, for example. It's people that are responding to calls. Okay, it's people that are assigning tasks. Those are the civilian positions. They all play a very important role in the fire department working. When you cut a mechanic, then you can't actually fix the fire engines in time. Okay, you can't keep the trucks running with the same efficiency necessary to combat structural fires all around the city. By the way, the money that they keep saying is being held for LAFD's raise are in this separate account hasn't even been transferred to the LAFD's operational budget as of this date. How do we know all this? Because we're the city's accountant. We know the city's budget and finances. We didn't want to get into the city's budget and finances during these times, but to see the city officials come out and ignore the fire chief's warnings / impacts of the department's budget cuts made us jump in. We can explain how all this works and how we got here. Just scroll down. By the way, what's not being talked about is that Chief Crowley requested $914 million for the current fiscal year's budget, which started last July. Instead, the fire department got $800 million, a budget cut of $17.5 million from the year's prior adopted budget of $837 million. So they asked for $100 extra million, and they got a budget cut, a budget reduction. So in terms of their need, they needed $900 million, but they actually ended up only getting $819 million, which is functionally $100 million less almost than what they demanded for their needs. Okay, how much money do you need, Jesus? You're right. These guys are out of control. I, for one, personally think that if the fire chief is saying we need $100 extra million and they make a reasonable demand for it, it's a reasonable ask for one of the largest cities in the United States of America, I think I'm going to give them that money. Okay? Except here's where the money went instead. And lo and behold, you might be shocked. Okay? Lo and behold, it went to the police department. That's right. That is right. In the second largest metropolitan city in the United States of America, did it go to the fire department to fight fires adequately? No, it went to the police department instead. After we're through these disastrous fires, we will hold a whole day's worth of our usual educational sessions where we educate people about the city's budget and finances. P.S. Do you want to know what city has transferred so far from the separate account that's holding this LAFD raises? $35 million to mainly pay for the city's liability payouts and litigation outside counsel costs. Where do you think those liability payouts are going to? You think it's going to the fire department liability payouts? Who is sucking up these funds? Oh, that's right. It's the police department. Our understaffed office just got our budget cut too. This eliminated 27 positions. Mainly accountants to do payroll and pay the bills. We're projected to overspend now because the city didn't account for our raises. Because of that, we have to find funds to transfer into our office's operating budget. Are city officials then going to deny that we got our office's budget cut because they're eventually going to transfer money into our operating budget to cover our overspending? That's their logic. And then guess who everyone yells at when employees have issues with payroll or are waiting for their raises or vendors about getting paid? Us, our understaffed office, where the city thought it was a great idea to cut accountants who handle the city's payroll and budget. If you want to see more about who got the most funds, operational budget increases in the fiscal year 2024-2025, please go back to this list and you will see exactly who got the whopping largest sum. When you recognize that the police got $126 million extra dollars, okay, whereas the fire department got their budget cut by $17 million, you start recognizing, like, look, one of the almost largest cuts came to the fire department, and the insanely largest increase from the existing operational budget came to the police department. Now understand something, okay? Republicans look at this and go, "Oh, well, they gave like 10 million to housing, or they gave like a couple million to immigration or something, like, you know what I mean, like integration or libraries." Meanwhile, the police got $120 million in increase. Now, when you recognize this, you have to understand why they're doing the looting is happening all around, and we have to have a muscular, militant police force to combat the never-ending looting. Please look away from the tens of thousands of structures that are burned to a crisp and how we could have at least, reduced that to the best of our ability. Please. You think the police budget increase is why they're jumping on this looting bandwagon? It's not a bandwagon. This is just the modus operandi. Hello? It's not a bandwagon at all. And once again, in the grand scheme of things, these minuscule budget changes are not the most reliable way to be like, well, that's $17 extra million that could have like fought fires or whatever. It's not about that. It's about spending priorities. If the city's spending priorities focus on reallocating all of the existing numbers to the police department, then their priorities are out of whack. That's my point. Minuscule law, yes, $17 million is marginal in comparison to the $800 million that the Los Angeles Fire Department receives. The public salary information on who's paid the most is also crazy, though. These firefighters making $500K to $800K a year. You're right. We should cut these nasty firefighters and their salaries, dude. Like, you're talking about the highest level. You're talking about like the chief. I don't even know if they do make $500K. It's also funny because, especially when paired up with overtime pay, you have the average beat cop getting $200K a year. And you're talking about like 3 people at the top of a 18 million populated city's massive fire department that is operating a budget of $800 million. And their salaries are like only double the amount of the average beat cop, especially when you put overtime pay. Pretty sure the guy on the ladder makes $7 million. Yeah, I don't think the guy on the ladder is making $7 million a year. New LA chief sworn in as one of the highest paid. Salary range for the position was set at $408,000 to $507,000 during the search process. The previous chief, Michael Moore, resigned from the position. LA police chief gets paid $500,000 a year. This cut hurts the response. 1/3 of the ACT's positions were in fleet maintenance. In budget memos since the initial cuts, Crowley has been asking for those positions to be restored. Why? Because fire trucks and ambulances are offline. Firefighters showed up to fight when the call was made, and they didn't have enough working vehicles. In budget memo after budget memo, Crowley has been explaining how this hurts their readiness and why it needs to be fixed. Some of the positions acts were specialty positions. It makes no sense to invest in $1 million machines but divest from their maintenance. Bass's own budget predicts that vehicle availability will go up despite making these cuts. Based on hope, a wish, a prayer, it's not what has been happening. Crowley came back with a mid-year request begging for the positions to be filled and funded, even on a 6-month basis. They haven't been yet. Public comment at the October Fire Commission meeting highlights the problem.
I would encourage each member of the Fire Commission to visit the Supply and Maintenance Division Yard in Lincoln Heights if you haven't already had the chance to do so. You'll see rows and rows of fire engines, fire trucks, rescue ambulances, and many other vehicles that are broken down, have been sitting there for months, if not years. Our mechanics are stressed, they're overworked, and they don't have enough time to do the proper maintenance on our rigs, which...
Yeah, LAFD, by the way, LAFD's entire budget is around $800 million, $814 this past year, lower than the year prior, which was $839 million. The Los Angeles Police Department's budget is $3 billion. Okay, I think it's, wait, what is it? Yearly budget. $2 billion. Apologies. $2.4 billion. I overshot it by an extra billion. It's $2.14 billion for 25 to 26. This plan reflects an 8.1% increase. The LAPD, is it how many millions? I always love using the term, the number. What is the daily cost to Los Angelinos for the LAPD yearly budget? $5,863,013. $5.8 million a day. It's not $8 million a day. That is the cost of the Los Angeles Police Department. Yep.
Serves the citizens of Los Angeles. It makes no sense to have $1 million fire.
No, this does not include litigation. Base pay, overtime pay, other pay, personnel benefits totaling 2.4. Water totals 2.4 billion. For police, base pay, overtime pay, other pay, personnel benefits totals. This says 1.95, but it's 2.1. Fire, on the other hand, is 821 million total. This is just payroll. No, but I think, no, this has more than payroll, right? There's no way. Where's Cinemarxism? This is your shit. Yeah, 2.4. I mean, you got it. Yeah. LA County supervisors passed 43 billion budget, give 4 billion to the sheriff's department in 2023, despite pleas from activists who pointed to the department being infested with deputy gangs and currently under consent decrees for the inhumane conditions in its county jails. The budget passed this week wound up being $367 million larger than the original budget recommendation made by the chief executive office. The budget includes increases to many departments' operating budgets. On Monday, in a meeting that went well into the evening, the soups passed a set of changes to the initial budget proposals that have been discussed over the last few months. These last changes include allocations of monies to an additional 552 staff positions, another 16.3 million to addressing homelessness, 29.9 million for more for various departments to move people with mental health conditions out of jails, at least another 52 million to county jails, and another 117 million to restructure the juvenile probation system. The LA County's multi-billion-dollar budget is bigger than of Kansas, Montana, and Vermont combined. 25% of the country's revenue is locally generated. County's revenue is locally generated, mostly made up of property taxes. 23% is generated from special funds and districts. 20% comes from state assistance. 17% from charging for services. 13% federal assistance, and 2% other. The chief executive officer, Fezia Davenport, cited a slowdown in consumer spending and housing market as challenges and recommended a conservative fiscal approach in the letter to the Board of Supervisors. Supervisor Holly Mitchell, 2nd District, made a last-minute attempt to delay giving additional money to the Sheriff's Department by making that vote 2-2. Addressing homelessness by moving them to other areas. Looking at you, Burbank PD. Yeah, just shoving them into Skid Row. Busing them to Skid Row. And then also routinely conducting street sweeps. So when Crowley says that 17.5 million mattered, this is what she means. Non-working trucks stuck in a maintenance yard hampered their response. This also prevented them from doing the annual brush clearance assessment, which she talks about in her December memo. Those brush clearance assessment fine property owners for not cleaning up flammable brush, but also hire contractors to do the work of clearing the fuel that spread the fire. The last report, 2022, was issued in 2023. None appeared on the council file this year, which is atypical. So let's talk about the brush clearance, okay? Because there's also like another problem here with an important part of wildfire prevention, okay, which is controlled burns. Since the cop budgets are so high, we might as well give them some hoses right now. Yeah, but they don't know how to operate that. What do finance have to do with these wildfires? Really, in some cases, so out of control that even if you brought every person on the planet and spent billions, it wouldn't make the difference under those conditions. So I don't understand the subject there. I mean, the problem is that there is mitigation, there's prevention, and also there is active combating, okay? And at every step of the way, the budget does matter. If the city's spending priorities are focused on giving more, hiring more cops instead of giving more money to the fire department when they're underfunded, then yeah, I'm going to bring that up. It shows that they refuse to address any of these problems. Okay, I'll just tell you this much. As far as the controlled burns goes, it is a tricky situation, especially in areas that are close to a lot of housing. Why is it a tricky situation? Because fire, you might be surprised to find this, is very hard to control, even if you do a controlled burn. And even a controlled burn can get out of control and end up causing structural fire damage to these cities, okay? This is one of the major reasons as to why people are very apprehensive about doing controlled burns in Southern California. They do, however, do controlled burns, or they used to do more controlled burns in Southern California, and they certainly still continue to do controlled burns in Northern California. Controlled burns are necessary for the forest to continue surviving, okay? Controlled burns are intentionally set and supervised by land managers to clear out excess fuel such as trees and logs to reduce wildfire risks. The problem, however, is that in Southern California, in the areas like Pacific Palisades, you can't even do a controlled burn because, and as chatters are already yelling at me, it's chaparral. It's not a forest. However, as far as I understand, the chaparral life cycle also requires like some kind of fire from occurring, and the Pacific Palisades was in the unfortunate last end of its life cycle. The LA fires didn't start or spread in the forest. The largest blaze in the Pacific Palisades neighborhood ignited in a chaparral environment full of shrubs that have been growing for about 50 years. John Keeley, a research scientist with the U.S. Geological Survey and an adjunct professor at the University of California, said that's not enough time for this particular environment to build up an unnatural accumulation of fuels. That's well within the historical fire frequency for that landscape. Kelly told my colleague Emily Pontecorvo for her reporting on what started the fires. Generally, he said these chaparral environments should burn every 30 to 130 years, with coastal areas like Pacific Palisades falling on the longer end of that spectrum. Fuels are not really the issue in these big fires. As extreme winds, you can do prescription burning in chaparral and have essentially no impact on Santa Ana wind-driven fires. We still don't know what ignited the LA fires, and thus whether a human utility, or other mysterious sources to blame, like Goku. But the combination of factors that led to the blazes, wet periods that allow for abundant vegetation growth, followed by drought and intensely powerful winds, are simply a perilously bad combination. Fire breaks, strips of land where vegetation is reduced or removed, can often prove helpful, and they do exist in the LA hillsides. But as Matthew Hertow, a professor at the University of New Mexico and director of Center for Fire Resilient Ecosystems and Society, told me bluntly, when you have 100-mile-an-hour winds pushing fire, there's not a hell of a lot that's going to stop it. This is an important part of this process that I keep stressing. And a lot of people don't understand it and think that I'm defending Karen Bass or Gavin Newsom or the lesbian fire chief or whatever the frick people are upset about on any particular moment. Okay? But this ultimately is the reality. Climate change that causes flooding and an explosive growth of vegetation, followed up by extreme drought that turns all of that vegetation dry, perfect tinder, perfect fuel for fires to erupt, create a uniquely disastrous predicament that no number of firefighters would be able to actively combat. Okay? That part is true. That's why I kept stressing that, like, while there are budgetary concerns, while obviously the city is not, they didn't prioritize this stuff in the way that they should have. There is no evidence that they would have been able to successfully stop the fire dead in its tracks, given the conditions. Herto told me that he thinks of the primary drivers of destructive fires as a triangle, with fuels, climate, and the built environment representing the 3 points. We're definitely on the built environment climate side of that triangle for these particular fires around Los Angeles, Herto explained, meaning the wildland-urban interface combined with drought and winds are the primary culprits. But in more heavily forested mountainous areas in Northern California, you get the climate and fuel side of the triangle, which is why they do more controlled burns in those areas as well. Chaparral burned every 30 to 80 years naturally. When they burn more frequently, they become invaded by annual grasses that can burn again after 1 to 2 years. Embers can travel impressive distances in the wind, as evidenced by footage of past fires jumping expansive freeways in Southern California. So as Herto put it, short of mowing whole hillsides down to nothing and keeping them that way, there is little vegetation management work to be done at the wildland-urban interface, where houses bump up against undeveloped lands. Not everyone agrees, though. When I spoke to Susan Pritchard, a fire ecologist and research scientist at the University of Washington School of Environmental and Forest Sciences, she told me that while prescribed, by the way, this is the exact type of stuff that like Republicans want to underfund. Like they're like, what is this woke nonsense that you're studying? Why don't you study, whatever I think is good? Okay. Why don't you study comp sci? Why are these guys spending so much money on hugging trees? Okay. Woke nonsense. She told me that while prescribed burns close to suburban areas can be contentious and challenging, citizens can do a lot of their own to manage fuel risk. This is something that I brought up as well. Neighborhoods can come together, do the appropriate fuel reduction in and around their homes. And that makes a huge difference in the wildfires. Landscaping in and around homes matter, even if you have 100-mile-an-hour winds with a lot of embers. So this right here is something that the fire department, in unison with the county, should be actively communicating to everyone and ensuring that there is proper upkeep. Okay? The brush clearing in LA County are private properties on hills or close to the forest to do your own cleanup. I live on a hill in LA, and we have to do it every year to limit the brush that can catch fire. I help my elderly neighbor do hers. Because even if embers fly across with 100-mile winds, it still needs to land on something that can catch, that can erupt in flame. Okay? Hold on. My food is here. My mom made some crazy food. Pritchard recommends residents work with their neighbors to remove burnable vegetation and organic waste and get rid of the so-called ember traps, such as double fencing, that can route fire straight to homes. Pritchard pointed to research by Crystal Colden, a pyrochoreographer, an associate professor at University of California, Merced, whose work focuses on understanding wildfire intersections with the human environment. I want the other stuff, the stuff that you didn't. Hold on, I'm gonna grab it in a second. Here, here's the intermission.
From where
here's the update
looks
from
like
what's
they're
going
kind of
on.
Organizing possibly in the backyard. But again, this is probably 20 feet from this home. So we saw those hand crews go back in there. I'm assuming they're going to try to stomp it out. But yeah, this is pretty close.
Very. They're certainly better positioned too. So if it gets any closer, they can, I believe, put water on it. That's why they're there. They're part of the, protection team.
Yeah, fortunately, the conditions out here are pretty good. I mean, we're not seeing those big wind gusts like we were seeing Tuesday night. I mean, I remember Tuesday, it was blowing us over out there, gust upwards of 50 miles an hour. Right now, relatively calm conditions. The smoke's pretty much going straight up. If anything, it's probably blowing away from the homes. So, hopefully it actually helps the firefight in the grand scheme of things if it starts blowing back onto itself. But right now, a little close for comfort for people out here.
Absolutely. And I'm sure whomever owns that home behind you is getting very nervous.
Do you know, is that particular homeowner still home, or did they evacuate?
We believe they evacuated. We haven't seen them. I know our Fox crew's been at their house all day, and I think has permission to be in their driveway right now. But we are under the belief that they have evacuated and are safe, and possibly watching Fox 11 right now to see how their home is doing. And good news to report, it appears like things are going well, and the fire crews are going to make sure that it doesn't reach their house.
Well, I was going to make comment that the vehicle that's in the driveway is nose out the way they advise you to be, but then I see a lot of stuff or possessions on top of the hood, which may mean it's one of the media teams there that has parked in that direction, but also they took the advice to put their vehicle in a nose out position so that they could get out quickly. But again, that is the way. When the fire authorities tell you this is the way you should park your car, you should take it out of the garage and make sure it's in a place where you can get into it and out of the area quickly. The problem with the area where Matthew is now and where most of this firefight is going on, we're talking about canyon roads, we're talking about narrow roads. That, too, is the reason why they don't want people to get back into the neighborhoods. Even if you do own a property, I'm getting text messages from someone who says, can you get me into my home, into my neighborhood? And the answer is no. The National Guard is there to keep you out, not just because of the looting concern, but also because they don't want you to get in the way of what the fire professionals have to do. What the
wow, now they're saying what the National Guard is supposed to be doing.
Big. They're big and wide. If you add to the parking situation, that's just going to, it's not going to help. So, imagine all the people that do want to go back. They want to see what the condition of their property is. That it's very frustrating. But the answer is, nope, you cannot go back in. Not when there is such an active firefight going on, as we see yet another fire truck go by. Hey, Matthew, can you tell is that an LAFD truck that just passed you, or by chance one of the more exotic ones coming from out of area?
That's from Santa Monica. So, a little bit of a drive. not their jurisdiction, I believe, so they're definitely here helping out. And I do want to show you this, because I think this is pretty interesting. We always talk about those embers, and when you were talking, one landed right next to my foot. I don't know if you can see that, but that's, you know, the concern. Even though what we're seeing right now is relatively small, we know that those embers can travel upwards of 2 miles, and if it lands on a piece of dry vegetation, it's still hot, can start another spot fire down the road, and that's why we have those evacuations further out than where we are right now on the edge of the fire line, right? So,
yeah.
And you were also talking about all the vehicles parking nose out because there's only one road out, right? So if the fire were to come down, we always need to have an exit plan. So those are things that we think about as members of the media. You leave your engine on and you face the way out. So if things change very quickly, you can get out of here and try to be safe.
In a moment's notice. All right, Matthew, keep a watch on those flames. Let us know how it's going. We'll check back with you in just a bit. We want to, this is the Palisades fire, of course, and that active flame on this ridge here, hillside in the Mandeville Canyon area. We want to get to the Eaton fire, and right now there's a virtual community meeting underway held by LA County Sheriff and LA County Fire, giving the latest information. Let's go ahead and dip in.
Containment is not control. Doesn't mean that the fire's out. It just means that we have some shaky line out there, and firefighters are mopping up, and we're working to secure it, and we're working to make it good. So when you see red on the map, those are areas that we don't have containment yet of this fire, meaning that there's considerable amount of work still to be done in these areas along the front country. Also want to call your attention here to these sections. Each one of these sections is a 1 square mile area. And so this down here, this map doesn't represent it as well, but this area here is a community, and it's square miles.
All right, let's keep going.
As well.
They themselves know that the inmates that they're taking out there, the inmates that they're housing, they are giving back to society. These guys absolutely give back to society.
And there have been more changes. AB 2187 was signed into law, allowing those that complete the program to have their records expunged, which opens the door for EMT certifications and the chance to become a municipal firefighter. There's also a training center in Ventura that serves as a re-entry program with full-time opportunities for CAL FIRE at the end, paying roughly $2,800 a month.
We have several inmates previously incarcerated, individuals that are now running their own hand crews, their own firing operations out there on the street.
As we prepare to head back to Sacramento, a real fire call goes out, and the men of Washington Ridge Camp head out to the front lines once again, as Thomas says, doing what they came here to do.
I think that there should be more of this and more programs out there because, again, it shows you a different way, and at the same time, you are held accountable.
Andrew, thank you. Labor advocacy groups are...
We're in Santa Anita Park, and quite frankly, it resembles a refugee camp on the edge of a war zone. But this is the community's response to the emergency. It's usually a multi-million-dollar horse racing venue. Horse racing has been suspended because of the quality of the air. So they put out a call for people to bring whatever they could, and my goodness, are they responding. They're bringing water and food and pet food, nappies, books for children, and clothes in absolute abundance. And those clothes are being sorted into different piles for toddlers and children and adults so that people who've lost everything have somewhere to go. I'm going to stop for a moment and talk to Dan, who's one of the volunteers here. Dan, are you surprised by the response of the community to the call to help?
I wouldn't say surprised, because...
Am I crazy? I feel like this dude is giving HasanAbi head vibes.
It's what we do.
How important is it to the community right now?
It's the most important thing. Everyone here knows someone that's lost something, so, you know, we're just trying to come out here and help as much as we can.
And what exactly are you asking people to do?
Right now, we're just sorting. So we're, this space right here has a ton of donations, but as you can see, it's kind of chaos. So right now, we're just sorting everything and trying to make it as usable for people as possible.
It feels like this is going to be needed for a long time.
Yeah, I have no idea. We just showed up, so we're just helping.
And thank you for what you're doing. The need certainly is significant here. 10,000 properties have been lost between the Eaton fire and Palisades fire. The occupants of those homes have lost absolutely everything. So right now, this is all they've got.
That's something Donald Trump talked about on the Joe Rogan Experience.
Yes, he did.
And then recently, Mark Zuckerberg from Meta was on the Joe Rogan Experience. He was talking about the kind of pressure that he got, that Facebook got from the Biden administration to censor during COVID. Watch.
During the Biden administration, when they were trying to roll out the vaccine program, while they're trying to...
I want to understand what HasanAbi have vibes. All I'm saying is anytime I see people doing mutual aid, anytime I see people working in like local activism, there's always at least one. And that dude always looks like the dude that we just saw. There's just something about it. I can just tell. But I don't know. All right, this is Fire County official trailer by CBS.
I understand that I committed a serious crime. I take full responsibility for my actions.
You can show them that you can be a positive member of society. Cal Fire is hungry for inmates just like you.
Station 42, vegetation fire, Bodega Highway.
Come on, let's go. Game time! Move, move!
I am sorry that I didn't make it today.
It's okay.
Totally forgot.
It's our anniversary.
Girl, you forgot your anniversary?
Shut up, Jake.
We are terrible people to date.
I don't know why she puts up with me.
You're a firefighter. She's basically dating Superman.
Good morning, gentlemen.
This is 3 Rock Con Camp.
Your life is pretty simple. I'm gonna teach you guys to remove the vegetation from the forest floor so the fire has no fuel to burn. You work hard, you do what I tell you, you'll reduce your sentence and go home to your friends and your family sooner.
Yes. Station 42, vehicular accident on Buckeye Road.
Fire in the timber. This has potential to become a major incident.
3 Rock responding. Grab your tools. Let's go. All right, guys. This is a real baptism by fire. By the end of the night, I'm gonna know what kind of a man you are.
What'd you do? I'm here because I robbed a man at gunpoint. He got up in my parole hearing saying he forgave me and he hoped I could turn my life around.
Wait, can you get... I thought if it was like, I thought if you're a violent offender, you can't do the program, but maybe I'm wrong.
I have to believe that if I work this program, that I can succeed, but I can't do it here.
And why is that?
Because this is my hometown. I left for a reason.
Buddy, why'd you have to leave this place?
Long story.
Dude needs to leave town. It's usually over a girl.
I wanted to see you tonight before I go to work.
I love you.
Fire has gotten into Miller Canyon.
This thing can rip right into town. We'll make our stand. Right here. God, I love this job.
They have to be deemed physically and mentally fit for vigorous activity to participate and cannot have been convicted of rape or other sex offenses, arson, and escape history. Oh, I guess you can be a violent offender. Okay. I'm being told I was just on the news. Don't lie to me. You just came in to claim that you're the person we just saw on TV. Don't lie. That person's name was Dan, too. Your name is Kathy. When about are we talking to the firemen today, Abby? In an hour, I'm going to be leaving to make my way over there. And by 6 p.m., that's me from Eagle Rock Run Club Law. I don't believe it. Post proof. That 2018 campfire documentary is on Netflix. I was an inmate firefighter in West Virginia in the year 2022. The work was extra grueling. I often have to work with violent inmates, many of whom made no effort to hide their poop sock. I'm willing to send proof if needed. Good one, chatter. Is that what we're doing? That's a new way to try and poop sock me? Disrespectful.